Today I'm going to teach you how to make an all-natural perfume, and this style of video, these kind of tutorials, are designed for beginners at home where you don't need to purchase an expensive scale. I'm just going to tell you how to do it in drops. Very, very simple. We're going to kind of follow the basic format that Mande F. Tell lays out in some of her books. It's a very simple method, like I say, drops instead of weight. And that way it doesn't overcomplicate things for people at home that just want to get into blending a little bit of perfume as a hobby out of their own personal interest, not in terms of setting up their own brand like I have done, but, you know, something fun to do at home by yourself for your own pleasure and for your own satisfaction. And yeah, this is a good way to get into it. So in today's video we're going to be looking at 100% natural perfumery. This is something that's been recommended that I do a video on, so here we are. The first video I'm going to teach you how to do the basics of an incense based fragrance, and then I'll also give you kind of some tips of how to kind of alter that into an amber perfume. If you want to do mixed media, by all means throw in some synthetics. This one is going to be natural based. For anyone new to the channel, my name is Peter. This channel mostly reviews perfumes. I'm a perfume reviewer. I am also a self-taught perfumer. I launched my own brand 3 years ago called Centauri Perfumes. I have a handful of perfumes that are handmade by myself. I do everything from start to finish. I blend them, I create the concepts, I bottle them up, I post them to you. If you'd like to support my business and brand, feel free to check them out at centauriperfumes.com. There's a link in the description. If you find this video helpful and you want to contribute or support in another way, you can buy me a coffee. The link is tagged in the comments and in the description, and that way it's essentially like leaving a tip. So like a street musician that's playing guitar on the street and you give a few pounds. Essentially exactly the same thing. If you find this tutorial helpful and you appreciate it, feel free to buy me a coffee. And I will appreciate it, thank you. So yeah, here we go. This is my perfume table. What you'll need for this, obviously, is the very basics. You'll need a glass beaker. We're going to blend in the beaker. If you want to blend straight into the perfume bottle, that's fine too. No harm done, so do that if you want to. Probably if you're doing this at home, you'll need plastic pipettes. You can find these on Amazon and places online. I'm not going to tell you where to buy them from, so to speak. Very easy to find. Recently I've changed my perfumer's table. I've transferred my most commonly used oils into these bottles that have droppers built into the lid, because I was a little bit mortified about how many plastic pipettes I was getting through and throwing away, and I feel bad about plastic waste when I'm using so much of it. So I try to not use as many and to use these kind of bottles for me personally, because I blend so much and this is my career, this is my job. Yeah, I've switched to these recently just so I have a little bit less waste. At home as a hobby, get yourself some pipettes. I'll explain what we're going to do. If you want a more comprehensive video on how to make perfume from start to finish, I did a video a couple of years ago that is really a lot more in-depth from the beginning. So I'm presuming anyone watching this is maybe a little bit more along the line of complete beginner. If you are a complete beginner and you've never done anything before, go watch that video first, because I go into a lot more detail and it will give you a really good fundamental of a starting point. This is building on that essentially. All the materials I'm recommending for this formula are easily purchased online for individuals. If you're in America, I'm not affiliated with any of these in terms of I don't get anything from recommending them, so to speak. It's just companies I use myself. Like Perfumer's Apprentice, if you're in America, very handy. They sell a lot of materials, and you can get the materials that we're using in this formula there, or places like Eden Botanicals is another one I use in America. I'm saying America because a lot of my audience is American. I'm in the UK, a little bit more difficult to get quality oils in the UK. I tend to import a lot of mine. So with this formula, you might have to go out and purchase some materials if you don't have them. I'm presuming that if you're watching this, you probably have a few oils laying around already. And if you don't, then you can get small quantities of these for relatively inexpensive. And the more expensive materials you can get, the small sample size kind of vials of these, where you're not spending a load of money. You can just, you know, get a little sample, a small amount. I will try to leave some links in the description. Again, I'm not affiliated with any of them. They're not affiliate links. They're literally just companies I use myself. If you're in the UK, I'll leave you where you can pick up Perfumers Alcohol. If you're in America, I'll try to do the same. I'll try to link where you can buy the oils that I'm using, and so you can get decent quality oils. I don't recommend really buying, you know, essential oils and things on places like Amazon, because you don't really know the quality that you're getting. So the links that I'll leave, you know, you're getting good quality, and when you have good quality, you'll smell better perfume. And so, yeah, I'll leave some links, again, not affiliated. Like I say, in this video, I'm trying to do it in the most basic, simplistic way possible for you at home so it doesn't overcomplicate things. Please keep in mind that this is simply a method that you can alter and change to suit your own personal taste. I'm giving you a formula and giving you a method and giving you some principles to work by, and then it's up to you if you want to follow it exactly, or you can alter it to your own taste. You can do experiments around it. Once you built it a first time, you can build it a second time and then start experimenting with changes. So I'm just giving you a basic method, a basic formula for then you to be able to expand upon that, and I'll give you some advice around that too. So we'll get into it with the formula and kind of what materials you'll need. Again, we're doing an incense-based fragrance. You're going to rely on resins primarily. An incense accord at the very simplest level is a combination of myrrh and frankincense. We're going to expand upon that. We're going to use another resin called Labdanum. Labdanum will give a thicker, deeper, slightly more sweetened base. It's also longer lasting than myrrh typically, and so it will help with longevity. So we're going to combine Labdanum, myrrh and frankincense as the core resins of the incense accord. The frankincense is what's going to give you that churchy like incense. So if you go into church and they're wafting incenses around, typically what you're going to get the most hit of is frankincense. So if you want a more church style incense, consider adding more frankincense. In incense accords, you have to introduce a smoke note. We're not going to do that in this video. Some examples of what you could add to introduce a smoke note would be things like cade or rectified birch tar. This is going to be a more natural incense rather than something that smells smoky. But like I say, you need to introduce the smoke note or a smoke accord into making a smoky kind of perfume. We're not doing it that way in this particular one, but you can add it as an option if you want to. I would recommend, if you're using something like cade or rectified birch tar, to dilute it to about 1% in alcohol, because it is nuclear. It will destroy your perfume with a single drop. Make sure it's diluted at least to 1% and go drop by drop, because it's very, very strong even at 1%, just as a warning. Okay, so once we've got the resins, and we're going to blend this in a second, but I want to go over the materials first. I try to introduce a wood into an incense accord. Typically, if you think about an incense stick burning, it's burning on an actual stick made of wood. So it's not just the aroma of whatever compounds are wrapped around it, it's the wood itself. And so I think adding some woody material is a good thing for an incense accord. I like to use something like a Texas cedarwood oil, because Texas cedar, you can also use Virginian cedar, but it has a more of a grainy wood, like chopped logs kind of smell, a little bit like pencil shavings. You get that chopped grainy texture. A little bit of that in an incense accord works really nicely. If you want to, you could do something like sandalwood. If you don't want the grainy accord, but you still want to add some kind of woody texture, you could try something like oak wood, which is more smooth. Just some examples for you. Again, you can change this to your own personal taste. You can experiment around. I'm just giving you a method. The next thing that you can add is a little bit of spice. And for incense accord, something like pink pepper or black pepper works very nicely. In this formula, I'm going to use pink pepper. And yeah, when you burn natural incense, you can get the charcoal blocks, and you pour resins, usually myrrh, frankincense. There's usually dried petals, like a little bit of dried crispy rose petal in there sometimes. You get little bits of cracked black pepper and pink pepper. So these are the kinds of things that you burn as actual incense when you're doing it the more traditional way rather than a stick. And so we're going to incorporate a little bit of spice, so a little bit of pink pepper in this one. Like I say, if you want to use a different spice, by all means, give it a try. We're going to use a little bit of a floral in this. Like I say, when you burn more traditional style incense on charcoal blocks or in a burner, there's quite often little bits of dried petal in there. We're going to use a couple of drops of Rose Absolute. Now if you don't have rose, you don't have to add it in, it's optional, and it will really only give a very subtle nuance in this and the amount that we're going to add. And so, like I say, you don't have to add it, but in this one we're going to use just a little bit as a nuance. Like I say, you don't have to spend loads of money. You can get small quantities of these things. Even a Rose Absolute, you can just buy a sample vial which has got a few drops in from places like Eden Botanicals. That way you can just suck up with a pipette and just literally use a couple of drops, and then you're not spending loads of money on, you know, more expensive oils like rose. But it's a good way to get a feel for, you know, what it does in a blend. So I think it's a good way to start as a beginner, or a little bit more than a beginner, to start experimenting without spending too much money. And lastly, we're going to introduce a little bit of sweetness. With this being 100% natural perfume, you could use vanillin, because vanillin, you can buy both synthetic vanillin and naturally derived vanillin. So if you want to use the natural vanillin, you can. In this one, we're going to use something a little bit more expensive. We're going to use Vanilla Absolute. Again, you can buy it in smaller quantities so it doesn't cost you a fortune, because Madagascan Vanilla Absolute, which is what I'm going to be using, is pretty expensive, to be honest. But we're only using a little bit just to provide a slightly additional sweetness to the resin in the base. Real Vanilla Absolute is lacking the same kind of sweetness that vanillin has. It's a little bit more woody, balsamic, resinous in itself, but it does provide a little bit of additional sweetness in the base. It's up to you what kind of vanilla you want to use. We're going to start in the Mandy Aftel style way, and she recommends 8 milliliters of alcohol first of all, and then we're going to do 33 drops of a formula which I have already prepared for you. So now I'm going to add 8 ml of alcohol to this beaker, and we'll begin with the formula. So I've just added 8 ml of Perfumers Alcohol into the beaker, and we're going to start with Labdanum. My Labdanum is diluted to 50%. It's quite thick if you buy it neat. I dilute it myself in alcohol. I buy it full strength, so to speak, and then dilute it myself to 50%. You can buy it 50% though. Perfumer's Apprentice in America, they sell it at Labdanum Absolute in 50% dilution in alcohol, which is perfect. I would recommend that you buy it in 50%. As someone at home, it's just a lot easier and less messy for you as a beginner at home, rather than having to, you know, dilute things yourself, because then you have to get into buying scales and doing it accurately with weight. So I would recommend that you buy this 50% dilution. Like I say, everything that I'm suggesting here you can buy easily on places like Perfumer's Apprentice or Eden Botanicals, places like this, or wherever you want to buy your perfume materials from. If you're in Europe, I like to use a company called Hermitage Oils. So the first part of the formula requires 5 drops of 50% Labdanum. So obviously mine, I don't have to use a pipette because mine's built into the lid. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 drops of Labdanum, 50% into the alcohol. And then we're going to do 8 drops of Myrrh essential oil. This is not diluted, it's just Myrrh essential oil. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 drops Myrrh essential oil. Then we're going to add our frankincense. There's different kinds of frankincense. The particular one I'm using is from Somalia and purchased from Eden Botanicals, and this one I am also using 8 drops of frankincense. So the myrrh and the frankincense I've balanced evenly for this one. Like I say, if you want a bit more of a churchy incense, use more frankincense. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 drops of frankincense. And there you go. That will give you a very, very basic incense accord, which smells very nice already. We're going to move on and we're going to put in the wood next, which for me is a Texas Cedarwood oil, which is here. And so we're going to add just 4 drops of Texas cedar. Like I say, if you want to use Virginian cedar or something like oak wood, by all means, try something different. I'm going to be using Texas cedar because I like the smell. I like the grain that it has. And 1, 2, 3, 4. That will give you just a little bit of a woody backbone to the incense, which I think is a good thing. So we'll give that a swirl. Smelling good. Okay, we're gonna add a little bit of spice. We're gonna add a couple of drops of pink pepper, and when I say a couple of drops, I literally mean 2. So 2 drops of pink pepper. 1, 2, that's all we need. Pink pepper has a cooling kind of fresh spice to it, which works very well in incense. Something else that I like to do now and again with incense is using something like a juniper berry, because juniper berry has, again, a little bit different to using something like cedar. This is more piney like nuances, a little bit more green, a little bit more fresh, slightly spiced. Juniper berry is a nice option also. The next, we're going to use a little bit of the floral, which in our case is a Bulgarian Rose Absolute. Again, just buy a small quantity. Rose Absolute's pretty expensive. You don't have to add it into this formula. It's not completely necessary. This will give you a nuance, which is nice. So yeah, I'm going to add 2 drops of Bulgarian Rose Absolute. And like I say, a lot of incense, when you burn them traditionally, will have dried petals crunched up into them, mixed in with the resins and spices. And a common one is dried rose petals. So 2 drops of rose will just give a little nuance. It's not going to smell like a rosy perfume, it's nuanced. So this is smelling very nice. And lastly, we're going to use the Vanilla Absolute. If you want to use vanillin for this, it will come in like a kind of plastic container like this, something similar. And like I say, you can buy a natural vanillin or you can buy the synthetic vanillin. So it's up to you what kind of sweetness you want to add, if you want to add it. You don't have to add vanilla to this at all. If you want to add something else, then personal taste, that's where Perfumer's Nose comes in. Blend it to your own taste, to your own satisfaction, what makes you feel, oh yeah, I like that. So for me, I'm going to use Vanilla Absolute for this. Vanilla Absolute, like I say, is less sweet than vanillin. It's more balsamic, it's more resinous-y, but it's got that lovely, deep, slightly more woody kind of sweetness, which I think is nice. And I think will smell really good in this incense fragrance. So we're going to add 4 drops of Vanilla Absolute. So yeah, and this will finish it off. If you want it like less sweet, obviously use less. But 1, 2, 3, 4. This will provide just a nice warm sweetness as it dries down. Mixing with those resins like labdanum and myrrh, the vanilla will just help that and smell really quite lovely. And there we go. That is a basic, or slightly more than a basic, but a nice incense accord, nice incense perfume. You can bottle that up straight away. You can pour it into a bottle. And this is the finished perfume. This creates 10 ml. So if you want to do obviously a 30 ml, times it by 3. If you want to do 50 ml, times it by 5. If you want to do 100 ml, times it by 10. So, you know, I'll leave that all in the description so you don't have to work it out yourself. I'll just do it quickly for you. Just check the description in the comments. Yeah, so that's ready to bottle. You can wear it straight away. And this will give you a lovely, natural, 100% natural incense perfume that smells very nice. This is a good starting point to make at home. Like I say, you can add to this. You can add more spice, you can add more woody notes, you can add more frankincense, you can go to town. It really does depend on your own taste, your own nose, what you like. If you want it a little bit sweeter, you could add vanillin. If you want it less sweet, you can remove the vanilla completely. And so yeah, that's the basics of making an incense perfume. And for just going over briefly, if you wanted to make this more of an amber-based perfume instead of an incense perfume, really you want to be sticking with labdanum and vanilla. First of all, that gives you the core of an amber perfume. Then you can build on it with other resins like benzoin or myrrh, and create a more complex amber. You can introduce things like sandalwood and musks, and things like that to kind of fill it out. But really you want to avoid adding frankincense really to an amber perfume and stick with more the core of labdanum and vanilla and then build it out from there, avoiding the things that will turn it into an incense perfume, mainly things like frankincense. Hope you enjoyed the tutorial. If you found this helpful and you enjoyed it, please feel free to buy me a coffee as support as leaving a tip if you want to. It helps the channel and it helps the cost of using my oils in these kinds of tutorials. And if you want to check out my own brand, it's Centauri Perfumes. You can check the link in the description if you wanted to get some samples. I also have a stockist in America called Lucky Scent if you want to check them out. They sell samples in full bottles. I've got 2 stockists in Europe, one in Spain, one in Belgium. Hope you enjoyed the video, and yeah, feel free to give this a shot if you want to make an incense perfume at home by yourself. This is a good way to do it, and you'll have a beautiful smelling natural perfume. If you don't want to use alcohol in a perfume and you want more of a roll-on based on oil, I'll leave some information in the description below for that. It's very simple. We just switch the alcohol for an alternative. If you want more information, just check the description. I'll have written quite a bit of detail in there. Take care, everyone, and I'll see you soon with some more videos. Stay blessed. Bye.
One time he disappeared for 2 or 3 days. When he came back, they asked him where he'd been, and he said, "Oh, just sailing."